welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. In this video, it looks like there's big news. I don't know how big this is, but I'll show you what's going on. So as you can see, the headline here, this is Israel 365 News. It says, now this was yesterday. Today is the 7th. Yesterday was the 6th. At the time of this recording, Jews begin building third temple on Israel Independence Day. Now, I did a video talking about Israel Independence Day, and when we're saying Independence Day, we're talking about on the Hebrew calendar, not on the Gregorian calendar. If we pull up the Hebrew calendar, it was on the 5th. Okay, you see right here, the 4th of Iyar. That's the name of the month, Iyar. On the Gregorian calendar, this year, it falls on the 5th of May. And the name of it is Yom HaAtzmaut. That's Israeli Independence Day on the Hebrew calendar. Okay, so they decided to do something special on that day, and it looks like they've started building the temple. Now, not to get too carried away, it's not like they're actually building it and like putting it in place on the Temple Mount, but as far as I know, this is like the actual beginning of the temple itself. Let's just read a few things here from this article, and then I'm going to go through a pretty comprehensive list of events, things that have taken place to get ready for the third temple. Okay, if you're not familiar with this concept, if you're new to the channel or new to this concept, this would be the third Jewish temple from their point of view. You had the first temple, which was Solomon's temple, that got destroyed by the Babylonians. Then it got rebuilt at the time of Christ. It was being rebuilt, and that, sometimes you refer to that as the second temple or the Herodian temple. That got destroyed by the Romans. And now, if the Jews as a people were to build another temple, it would be the third temple. There are some people within the church that believe that this is the temple that has to be built before the second coming. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case, but I also wouldn't be surprised if that's not the case. I'm not going to be too rigid on that because not a whole lot has been said about that. There's one quote from Bruce R. McConkie. He said that the temple in Jerusalem would undoubtedly need to be built by the proper authority, meaning the church. And again, I have a playlist called the BYU Jerusalem Center, which it was not intended to be a temple officially, and that's still the case right now. But that does not mean at all that the Lord may not have plans for it in the future, maybe once the second coming happens or whatever the case may be. You could have that as like kind of like an administrative temple for Christ when he comes. Or not. It's unclear exactly what's going to happen. I know some people have really strong feelings about it, but as far as I'm concerned, I don't know. Like, we'll just have to wait and see. So that's why I like keeping on top of what's going on in the efforts to build the third temple. Okay, so while most Israelis were celebrating Independence Day by having family barbecues, a small group gathered in the old city of Jerusalem and began chipping away at stones, preparing them to be used to build the prophesied third temple. Again, this is the first time I've ever heard anything like this. Now, they have already created many different things for the temple that are ready to go if they're successful at being able to construct it. I've brought up the Temple Institute on the channel many times. You may already be aware of them. I follow them on Facebook because I really want to, between them and Israel 365, I feel like those are the two best sources to keep up on what's happening in Judaism and specifically in Israel and with the Temple Mount and the third temple. But you go to their website and you can see here they have everything ready to go. They even have the Ark of the Covenant built. It's ready to go. Here it is. So they have everything for all the instruments and furniture and the clothing. This right here is the breastplate of the high priest, and we've talked a lot about this. So This is ready. They also have an altar ready. But as far as anything, any building materials for the structure itself, this is the first time that I've heard of it. So I think we should take notice. Okay, so the event was organized by Rabbi Arya Lippo, who envisioned it while on his way to the funeral of Rabbi Chaim or Chaim Kanievsky in March. Now, if you've been watching since March, I covered that event, and it was a huge event because they basically called him the last prince of the Torah. Some people, like, he was very extremely influential. He was originally from Ukraine, if I remember right, and then he came to Israel at a very young age and never left. And he was basically, for all intents and purposes, the top rabbi within Israel and probably within Judaism. So when he died, they took it as a sign that that Messiah is close, the Messiah that they're waiting for. There were thousands and thousands, just so many people that attended the funeral. It was insane. So go watch that video if you want to learn more about that. Just go to my playlist called Judaism or Israel, Jerusalem, and Judaism. I have multiple playlists that cover these things. So that was kind of like a milestone event. So this rabbi, okay, while he was on his way to the funeral of Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky in March, came up with this idea. Lippo ascends the Temple Mount on a daily basis when the Israeli police permit Jews to enter, but was deliberating with a friend, which was more important, to attend the funeral of a tzaddik, a righteous Jew, or to ascend the Temple Mount. To honor Rabbi Kanievsky, he and a friend were learning a halakhic Torah law ruling written by Rabbi Kanievsky, in which he stated that the stones for the temple had to be cut by Jews with the intention of honoring God's name. Excuse me. So I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can do this if you want. Let's see. As an aside, Rabbi Lippo has already begun collecting stones for the altar. Now, again, they do have an altar already constructed, but from what and we're about to read it in just a minute. From what I understand, it's not like the permanent altar. It's like a portable altar that can immediately go up there as soon as the conditions are right to where the Jews can build the temple. So they have the altar ready to go, but currently it's not like a permanent altar. So I guess he's begun collecting the stones for the permanent altar. Rabbi Lippo cited Rabbi Zvi Yehuda Kook, who in 1937 wrote an article relating to Ezekiel's vision of the Jews' return to Zion. Okay, so let's move on. Here's a picture of it. Now, they do have the actual blueprints and construction plans ready for the temple, so I'm assuming that they are creating these stones to those specifications. So they're not just like, they're not just eyeballing it. I'm sure that they're cutting them to the right size. Well, here you go. In order to perform the mitzvah, or in other words, the commandment, in order to perform the commandment properly, Rabbi Lippo had to consult with several rabbis who were expert in issues concerning the temple. Because of its politically sensitive nature, in aspects some rabbis consider when ruling about the Temple Mount and the Third Temple, there are normally vastly divergent views regarding such issues. Okay, so there's that. Most quarries in Israel are operated by Arabs, and they preferred not to use stones from those locations. They collected 23 sizable stones from a field near the community of Eish Kodesh, Holy Fire, in Samaria. A contractor from Judea transported the stones to an area near Hurvad's synagogue in the Old City. Lippo's mother, who was born with the state of Israel 74 years ago took part, enthusiastically helping to chip away the stones. Lipo plans on holding more events of this type to prepare more stones for the third temple. And here he is doing it, which is amazing to see. This is amazing to see, okay? Because if it is the Lord's plan for them to build this third temple, and if in the millennium this becomes the temple of Jerusalem, or even just a temple, okay, what you're looking at right here is historic. This is the first time since the temple was destroyed by the Romans in the year 70 AD that we see the temple actually coming back. This is it right here. That stone that he's working on right there. Can you believe that? Again, we'll have to wait and see how things actually turn out, but that is simply stunning to me. I hope it is to you too. Here's another video. Let's take a look at this. I'm not sure exactly what he's reading there, but he is wearing safety glasses, so we have better safety standards nowadays than a couple thousand years ago, so that's good. The current situation in Israel is a beautifully developed country, while the Temple Mount is under control of the Palestinians, is similar to the situation described by the prophet Haggai. It is a time for you to dwell in your paneled houses, while this house is lying in ruins. Oh, is it a time for you to dwell in your paneled houses while this house is lying in ruins? So that's the spirit of what he's feeling. So, okay, so this is amazing. This is amazing. If you want to read the whole article, I'll put the link for it in the description. I do that for every video. Any source that I cite or that we look at, I put the references in the description so you can go check it out for yourself, expand on what we were looking at in the video, verify what we were looking at. Okay, so we're going to go back in time to the year, what is this? The year 2007? Wait, 2009? July 29th, 2009. Okay. So this was a long time ago. The Temple Institute will begin building the sacrificial altar on Thursday, Tisha B'Av, a fasting day when Jews mourn the destruction of the temple some 2,000 years ago. So Tisha B'Av, it's a special date, and let me see if I can find it here. Av is a month, okay? So Tisha B'Av, here it is right here. This year it's going to be on Sunday, August 7th. Interesting day for that to happen. The 7th, August, and it's known as the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av, okay? So anyway, so back in 2009, the Temple Institute will begin building the sacrificial altar on Thursday, Tisha B'Av, a fasting day when Jews mourn the destruction of the temple some 2,000 years ago. And there's other events that they associate with Tisha B'Av. If I remember correctly, the Spanish Inquisition started, or the Jews that did not convert were expelled on that day, or something to that effect. Same thing with England. And I think that they believe that both temples were destroyed on this day. So it's a day of mourning, okay? The sacrificial altar was located in the center of the temple, and upon it, the Kohanim, which are the priests, offered the numerous voluntary and obligatory sacrifices commanded in the Bible. The Temple Institute, which has already built many of the vessels for the Holy Temple, and at this point, in 2022, I think that they have them all, such as the Ark and the Menorah, has now embarked on a project to build the altar. Construction begins Thursday in Mitzpah, Jericho, east of Jerusalem, at 5:30. Okay, now let's come all the way forward to Oh, this one's out of order. Gosh dang it. I thought I had them all in order. Sorry, bear with me. Okay, now we're in 2016. Okay. The third temple closer than ever as search begins for eligible Jewish priests. This right here is like well, it says right here, Kohanim blowing silver trumpets in a reenactment of a temple service. Now, in Judaism, from what I've seen so far, there's basically two types of horns. You have the shofar, which is a ram's horn, but then you have these like temple trumpets or horns, and this is the one that obviously, I don't need to tell you, it resembles what the angel Moroni is blowing. So that's interesting. The Temple Institute has initiated the second stage toward building the temple, compiling a list of Jewish priests who will be eligible to prepare the red heifer and serve in the temple. Rabbi Chaim Richman, the international director of the Temple Institute, announced on Monday. The announcement coincides with the weekly Torah reading that describes the preparation of the red heifer. Now, as of right now, and I did a video on this not too long ago, they had some candidates for the red heifer. It's supposed to have not more, I can't remember, I think it was not more than 2 hairs that are not red. So it has to be completely red. I think 2 is the most number of hairs that it can have that are not red. Okay. And they were worried because there were some hairs that had turned white or black or something like that, but they've actually turned back to red. And so if it stays that way, they're going to have some candidates coming up later this year. So we're in a really interesting time. Why is it important that that they have a red heifer? Well, it's because in order to build the temple, you have to use the ashes of the red heifer to purify the area of the temple, and also purify all the instruments to be used in the temple and the Kohanim, or the priests. Okay, so they have to have that. The registry will include men who have a clear patriarchal heritage from the priestly class, descendants of Aaron. Remember, Aaron was Moses' brother. Were born and raised in Israel and have observed the laws of purity incumbent upon priests. This includes not coming into proximity with the dead. So priests or Kohanim who were born in hospitals, have visited hospitals, or have entered cemeteries are not eligible. So that seems kind of difficult to become eligible, but there you go. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So that was March 30th, 2016. Now we're in August 4th, 2016. School to train Levite priests for Third Temple service to open in Jerusalem. Now remember, there's a difference between the high priest, priests, and the Levites. Okay. If I remember correctly, the high priest has to be of the lineage of Aaron, but like the oldest male, the oldest male. That's how it worked. All the other priests have to be descendants of Aaron, and then the Levites simply have to be from the tribe of Levi. Okay, so this is talking about a school for the Levites. The Temple Institute has brought the Third Temple one step closer by establishing a school for Jewish priests, Kohanim, to learn how to perform the temple service. Oh, well, this is talking about Kohanim. A group of students certified as being from the priestly caste, or caste case, stands ready to learn of all the details of this complicated task, which may become relevant sooner than anyone thinks. 4 months ago, the Temple Institute established a registry of Kohanim, a list of men who have a clear patriarchal heritage from the priestly class. The Kohanim must fit certain criteria. In addition to having priestly heritage, they must have been born and raised in Israel, have observed the laws of purity incumbent upon priests. So we just read that. Okay, look at this. I didn't know this. The Temple Institute was founded in 1987. Okay. 1987, to fulfill the mission of bringing about the Third Temple. In addition to educating and raising awareness, the Institute made amazing practical progress in this daunting task. It has recreated over 70 vessels that are ready to be used in the temple, is breeding the red heifer in order to purify the nation of Israel, and has produced the special garb that garb the Bible requires the Kohanim to wear while performing the temple service. Okay, let's move on from this one. Okay, now we're in August 8th, 2016, the world's first institute for training Third Temple priests. It looks like this is probably basically the same story, because this is just 4 days later. Okay, so anyway, here's this. You can see some pictures of what it looks like. All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, August 29th, 2016, SANHEDRIN appoints high priest in preparation for Third Temple. I did not know this until just now. The significant step was taken towards reinstating the temple service when the nascent Sanhedrin selected Rabbi Baruch Kahan as the next Kohen Gadol. A Kohen, Kohanim is the plural. A Kohen is just the priest, singular. So the Kohen, the priest, Gadol, high. So the high priest, Kohen Gadol. The selection was made as a precaution for Yom Kippur. If the political conditions should change, allowing the Jews access to the Temple Mount, they'll be required by Torah law to bring the sacrifices. Rabbi Kahan is confident that if that should happen, temple service could begin in less than 1 week. So that is interesting. Although the thing I don't understand about this is that they didn't have a red heifer prepared back then. So I don't know. Maybe he's saying like if a miracle occurred. So here he is right here. This is the man that they would have as the high priest. Now, well, okay, I'm not going to get into that. Let's just move on. Rabbi Kahan is a prominent scholar, knowledgeable in the complicated laws pertaining to the subject of the temple service. He is part of the Halakha Barua Institute, established by Rabbi Avraham Isaac Kahoen Cook, the first chief rabbi of Israel, which deals with the elucidation of Jewish law from its Talmudic sources, oral law, and commentaries. He has played a prominent role in all 3 reenactments of the temple services performed to date. This year has already seen much temple-oriented activity. The Temple Institute has created a registry of Kohanim, established a school for educating men of the priestly class in the details of the temple service, and performed reenactments on all of the holidays, including the especially significant Passover service. Okay. So let's do a little bit of research here. I just kind of like hurried and put this together, but I want to see, would he still, as of like right now, be the high priest, the Kohen Gadol? 2019. He was born Martin. Whatever, I might have to do that for another time. But from what I'm seeing here, it looks like that's probably still the case. That's fascinating. Okay, let's go back. Okay, the temple has quote unquote reappeared. You won't believe it. You won't believe how. Last week, some visitors to the Western Wall, the Kotel, in Jerusalem reported that they had seen the Second Temple reappear. And though the Messiah hasn't yet arrived, the reports were indeed accurate. A new project from the Temple Mount Heritage Foundation and Ark Tour is perhaps the closest you can get to experiencing the temple, at least until it is really built. The newly unveiled project uses virtual reality, a new technology used mainly for gaming and entertainment. In a way, in a way its innovators probably did not anticipate, immersing the user in a religious journey. The participant sits while wearing a special set of virtual reality goggles, uh, which put him into a three-dimensional depiction of the world of the Second Temple. Okay, so this is talking about virtual reality. That's really cool, though. I would like to try that out. The graphics look pretty clean, and that looks beautiful inside there. That looks really, really good. There's the high priest lighting the menorah. Dang. I would like to experience that. Okay. One thing I want to point out before we move on. I mean, look at these dates. Okay. All this activity mostly starts, even though it kind of like technically started back in 2009 with the altar. All these other stories come from 2016. Okay. Think about the dates that we've talked about in the years that we've talked about on this channel. 2017 was definitely what seems to be the start of something. I'm not one that believes in the 7-year tribulation period. I feel like that's an idea that comes from the evangelical world, but I do think that this period in between these two eclipses are special, and I've detailed that many times on the channel. They've gone over significant church sites. So anyway, the point is, a lot of things happened in 2017, but the year before it, 2016, that's when you have all this like preparatory work that begins, excluding what the Temple Institute had already done in constructing the instruments and stuff like that for the temple. So it's interesting that this stuff starts picking up in 2016, right? And then 2 years later, that's when we have President Nelson become president of the church. And well, it's just interesting. There's a lot of interesting things going on in the world of Judaism and in our church, right? So, okay, let's move forward. Let's see some more. Okay, photos. Priests, Sanhedrin perform reenactment of Yom Kippur temple service. Okay. So Yom Kippur, the other name for that is the Day of Atonement. It's the holiest day of the year in Judaism. Let's see, late Wednesday, a demonstration of the Yom Kippur temple service was held in Hebron, adjacent to the Cave of the Patriarchs. The rare display allowed participants to get a glimpse of what was once the glory of the temple service. The reenactment was initiated by the Midrasha La'ad Hamikdash, headed by Mordecai Persoff and the nascent Sanhedrin. Rabbi Hillel Weiss, spokesman for the nascent Sanhedrin, explained to Breaking Israel News that the reenactment was not just for the benefit of spectators. Quote, in the days of the temple, for 1 week before Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol, high priest, practiced the service in order to prepare. One opinion stated that this was a commandment from the Torah as part of the holy day itself. The essence of the day is atonement. The Kohen Gadol asked for forgiveness for himself, for his household, and all of Israel, right? And we know that in Old Testament times, the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, really was symbolic and a foreshadowing of Christ, the great high priest, the only one worthy to enter back into the presence of God on his own, without any outside help because of his sinless life. And he, in turn, made it possible for the rest of us to enter in to the Holy of Holies, to the presence of God, right? When Christ was crucified, the veil of the temple was torn, it was rent, symbolizing that now he made it possible for everybody else to go in there, all those that were worthy, that have covenanted with him, and so on and so forth. For the demonstration, the Kohanim, priest, used silver horns that are already used or are ready to be used in the temple, and wore clothes that are especially prepared uh, use in the temple. The belts worn by the regular Kohanim are shatnets, a mix of wool and linen that is forbidden except when used to make clothes for the Kohanim. In the demonstration, the Kohen Gadol wore a representation of the chosen Hamishpat breastplate. Okay, so he wasn't wearing the actual one. And the Kohen, and the golden headband upon which was inscribed Kodesh La Hashem, holy to God, which really we know that in this this is where we get the holiness to the Lord that goes on the temples, right? It was on his forehead, on the headband, holiness to the Lord. Behind the Kohanim, on the left side, is the 7-branched menorah that was lit every evening in the temple. To the right of the two models of the racks that held the showbreads, in the center is a model of the small golden altar upon which the incense was burned. Okay, and here's a picture of it. That menorah is gigantic. It's as big as a person, taller. Okay, so here's more. You can go and read more if you want to. There's the Ark of the Covenant. I doubt that this is the actual one. Oh no, sorry, my bad. Incense burns on the altar. Okay, even though it looks like the Ark of the Covenant. I don't know. Prostration, blessing. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Now it's October 21st, 2016. Reenactment of ancient water libation ritual revives part of temple service. Okay. On Wednesday, the third intermediate day of the week-long holiday of Sukkot, which is the Feast of Tabernacles, Kohanim, dressed in ceremonial garb and used utensils created especially for use in the third temple, led the third annual reenactment of the joyous water libation ceremony that was once part of the temple service. Wow, look at that. The water is scooped into the vessel. That's from, well, let's read it. In temple times, a libation of water was made together with the pouring out of wine at the morning service on the last 6 days of the week-long Sukkot holiday. Kohanim descended from the temple to the Shiloach spring at the base of Mount Moriah, where they filled the flask with 3 log of spring water, approximately 2 pints, and returned to the temple. 2 Kohanim then ascended the stone altar in the temple's inner courtyard, placing 2 silver cups on the southwestern corner. 1 Kohen poured the water from the silver flask, while the second Kohen simultaneously poured wine from the second cup, both liquids flowing into holes in the altar, especially prepared for this ceremony. There's the ceremonial trumpets. It's so cool seeing this. It is so cool. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This is December 21st, 2016. Third temple on the way as priests prepare ritual Shabbat showbreads. So look at that. That's not at all how I pictured it whenever I studied it out of church materials. I'm assuming that they're doing everything correctly, that this is like actually what it's supposed to look like. I'm gonna trust them, or give them the benefit of a doubt, unless I find out differently. But look at that. Look at this. I don't know what this is called. This table. And it has 12, doesn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. 12 showbreads, and they're in a interesting shape that I never would have guessed. Last Saturday, a Shabbat reenactment of a temple ritual took place in the holy city of Hebron, giving participants a taste of the temple service as it was in biblical times, while taking a practical step towards preparing for the third temple. More than 80 more than 80 participants were greeted in Hebron Friday afternoon by the lighting of the temple menorah, lit by Shimshon Album and Rabbi Yaakov Heyman, the newly elected chairman of the temple movement. Facing the menorah was the special rack holding the 12 lechem panim, showbreads. And here they are right here. Gosh, that's fascinating. The lechem panim is unleavened bread, similar to the matzah eaten over Passover. And the 12 loaves are required by biblical commandment to be on display inside the temple sanctuary at all times. Cups of frankincense mixed with salt were placed on the bread. Now, I'll tell you that frankincense and myrrh smell excellent when used as incense. I would highly recommend it. If you like the smell of like campfire or burning or things like that, you probably won't be disappointed by frankincense or myrrh. So you can buy those at Walmart. By the way, they have an incense section. Yeah, gosh, this is crazy. Okay, let's go to the next one. Now we're in 2017. That very special year, April 9th, 2017, Jewish priests offer Paschal lamb just hundreds of meters from Temple Mount. Okay, here we go. Now things are like really getting serious. At a court battle to gain police permission, the Sanhedrin held a full reenactment of the Passover sacrifice and temple service Thursday evening in a manner reminiscent of the glory that was once the temple. This year, the ceremony was closer to the Temple Mount, where the service would take place if the temple were standing, than ever before in 2,000 years. For the last 15 years, the Sanhedrin has hosted a full-dress reenactment of the Passover sacrifice in Jerusalem. With humble beginnings and intended more as a public lesson, the ceremony has grown. Every year, more people attend, and the ceremony itself develops in complexity, becoming more like the actual ceremony in the temple. That's fascinating. That's fascinating because it's like just like what they're saying here. It's like developing and becoming what it should be if it was restored. Now we've done, okay, so don't think that I'm like ignoring the restored gospel and how Passover actually relates to the sacrament. We've talked about that at length. So we're just looking at this strictly as like a Jewish point of view, and possibly is something that needs to happen for when Christ comes, that all this stuff be restored, so to speak. Anyway, on Thursday, Kohanim, men from the priestly caste, dressed in special garments that adhere to biblical requirements and performed the ceremony accompanied by musical instruments specially prepared by the Temple Institute for the use in the Third Temple. A lamb was sacrificed under supervision of a representative of the government veterinary ministry and subsequently roasted as mandated by the Torah. And here they are, the Paschal lambs. So they actually did it. They actually did it. To accommodate the growing crowds, the Sanhedrin planned to hold the ceremony this year at the Davidson Center, an archaeological park adjacent to the Western Wall and the Temple Mount. Fearing Muslim violence, the police refused to issue a permit for the event, and only 4 days before the event, the venue was moved to a location inside the Jewish quarter near Hurva's synagogue. However, even this location is prime, located only a few hundred meters away from the Western Wall and the Temple Mount. Okay, some more pictures. This is one of the instruments right here, this harp. If I go back here to the gallery, close out of this, you see it right here. So, oh, that's interesting. It has like a little, kind of like a decorative, like the facade of the temple, the front part. That's pretty cool. I don't know. Let's see if this is the same one that he's using. Okay, let me find it. No, this one looks like it might be different. Like not the actual one, but anyway, there's an altar of sorts made out of like cinder blocks, washing their feet. Okay, I better not go any further than that. Okay, now we're in July 31st, 2017. For first time in millennia, Jewish priests will undergo training to enter temple's Holy of Holies. Okay, so the education process continues at this point. Now we're talking about the Holy of Holies. For the first time in 2,000 years, a group of Kohanim, men of Jewish priestly caste, living close to Jerusalem's old city, are studying the relevant Jewish laws to be able to ascend the Temple Mount and enter the Holy of Holies, where God's presence is said to dwell. This development was initiated by Israel's first responder organization, Zaka, based on a decision by the Zaka Rabbinical Council following an event occurring during the 3 weeks of austerity leading up to the 9th day of Av. The July 14 Palestinian against Israeli police officers that left 3 dead, including okay. No, we're gonna just skip that. Okay, so that happened. Okay. Okay. Now, October 3rd, 2017, SANHEDRIN performs temple blowing of shofars and silver trumpets for Jubilee. I'm just gonna I'm gonna speed this up a little bit, but you can go here and check it out yourself. Okay, May 22nd. Now we're in 2018, and this is now President Nelson is president of the church. Okay, first fruits ceremony reenacted overlooking Temple Mount. Now, from what we've studied so far, first fruits itself has not been observed since the time of the temple because it requires the temple to offer the sacrifice. So it's considered as being observed by reading about it, by studying it, so on and so forth. So, okay. On Monday at the promenade in Armin Hanatziv, overlooking the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, a group of Kohanim recreated the ritual of the first fruits as it was performed in the temple. Now, again, this is one of the 4 spring feasts or spring, festivals, whatever you want to call it. This is the one that's associated with Easter and with Christ being resurrected. He was resurrected on first fruits. The event was organized by the Mikdash Temple Educational Center, the United Temple Movements, and the Nascent Sanhedrin, an initiative to reinstate the biblically mandated court of 71 elders. Okay, so here's the Bikurim. That's like the Jewish name for it, first fruits, the Bikurim. And here they are. We've studied it, that there's 7, it says right there, 7 species. Here are the 7 species for first fruits. Okay. Wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olive oil, and dates or honey. I don't know if that you can switch those out, but anyway, those are the 7 species for Bikurim or first fruits. A model of the Ark of the Covenant, the menorah, a model altar, and a rack for the showbreads were arranged also as an educational illustration. So here it is. Okay, let's move on. Okay, this one is out of place. I'll move this back. Okay, so we just did first fruits. Okay, for first time since Second Temple, golden vessels used in libation ceremony. So opposed, I guess, to what we saw before, which I think was silver. Now they're using gold for the first time. since the Second Temple. And I'm not going to read the details, but it looks like, something similar is happening here. Okay, let's move on to the next one. November 29th, 2018. Sanhedrin invites 70 nations to Hanukkah dedication of altar for the Third Temple. So we had read all the way back here that they already built the sacrificial altar, or they started to. I don't know if this one is different from over here, because this one says the dedication. So I don't know. Well, let's just read it. The Sanhedrin released a declaration to the 70 nations for Hanukkah to be read at a ceremony in Jerusalem on the last day of the holiday. The ceremony will include the consecration of a stone altar prepared for use in the Third Temple. The declaration is intended as an invitation to the nations to participate in the temple and receive its blessings. The altar is currently the altar is currently in the form of loose stone blocks ready to be transported to the Temple Mount and stored in a manner that will enable them to be transported and assembled at a moment's notice. So as soon as they're able to do it, they want to do it. When complete, the altar will be a square 9 feet on each side and 5 feet tall, and includes a ramp for the priest to ascend. The decision to prepare the blocks and all the details of their composition is the result of a long study performed by the members of the Sanhedrin in conjunction with the Temple Institute. The stones are made of aerated concrete and are fit for use in the temple. There are plans underway to prepare a new set made of actual stones, which are considered the ideal material from which to build the altar. Now that's interesting, because now I understand why, because it seems that they've actually, since this time, made a new altar. And it might be because of that, because maybe they finally did one that had actual stones. A full dress reenactment of the Korban Olah Tamid, the daily offering, will take place. Kohanim, wearing biblically mandated garb, will lead the ceremony. Grain offerings, wine, libation. Okay, let's move on from that. Okay, now we're in December of 2018. Temple-ready altar dedicated on last day of Hanukkah by activist groups. A new altar fit for the temple was dedicated outside the walls of the old city of Jerusalem. And here it is. So if you want to see what it looks like, this is it right here. Okay. So on the last day of Hanukkah, that's when they dedicated this one. Okay, now this is also December 2018, miracle of ingathering of dedication of altar for Third Temple. Okay, I'm just going to do a search for miracle, because what was the miracle? Maybe just the fact that they did it. South American nation who attended. Okay, on Monday, the last day of Hanukkah, the Sanhedrin called out to the 70 nations to join in the consecration of the altar for the Third Temple. A full-dress reenactment of the daily sacrifice was held, and a representative of a South American nation who attended was the recipient of a miraculous fulfillment of the messianic promise of the ingathering of the exiles. So I guess that's the miracle there. After months of intensive study, the Sanhedrin ordered a stone altar built, scheduling its dedication to take place on the last day of Hanukkah, just outside the walls of the old city. Oh, okay, so this is the stone one. This is the stone one. Okay, let's move on. Dedication of altar for Third Temple. This is just the same story. Move forward. November 2021. Sorry, let me just make sure. Okay, July. This is going to be the next one here. Okay, July 2021. Manufacturing of unique red dye for Third Temple begins. Okay, because everything has to be done to the letter according to the Bible, right? Okay, so on Sunday, a woman went out to collect tiny insects that once a year produce the flame-colored dye that was used in the temple. The time-consuming work produced a minuscule amount of dye, but she is determined to continue moving forward toward bringing the third temple. And this must be her right here. Bringing back the temple service requires attention to the multitude of details described in the Bible. Um, Tolat Shani is usually translated as crimson wool, but the actual term refers to the worm, which is the source of the dye used for the temple curtain, as well as the garments of the high priest. As for Mishkan, uh, make it of 10 strips of cloth. Make these of fine twisted linen of blue, purple, and crimson yarns with a design of cherubim worked into them. Okay. Okay, so anyway, here's, if you want to look at the details of this, it's very, very specific. This picture, Orna Hirschberg collects tiny insects that once a year produce a flame-colored dye that was used in the temple. Jeez, that is so crazy. That is so crazy. Okay, next one. November 2021. First time since Second Temple, rabbis convened to implement biblical law on Temple Mount. Now, this doesn't necessarily have so much to do with the temple itself. I did a video on this when this happened, and it's amazing because from what I've seen so far, Jews are only able to go up and do like a guided escort by police around a designated path around the Temple Mount, and that's it. So the fact that they were able to do this up there, yeah, that's huge. That's huge. And you can see what it looked like. There's some YouTube videos here if you want to go watch them. Okay, November 30th, 2021, reenactment of anointing the high priest to be held the last night of Hanukkah. So now this was just last year. I mean, essentially this is just a few months ago. On Monday, December 6th, the reenactment of several temple ceremonies will be held in Mitzpah, Jericho. A new altar will be dedicated for use on the Temple Mount. Now, here it is again, another new altar. So I think that this is like the third one, maybe the fourth. It's hard to really say. At one point in the early stages, there was like a concrete one, and then we just read that they were able to make a stone one, and now it seems like this is yet another one. So, a demonstration of anointing the Kohen Gadol, which is the high priest, will also be held. So they did a anointing demonstration dedicating the altar. The event will also feature the dedication of a new altar. The altar adheres to the minimum requirements, which will allow it to be used on the Temple Mount. It is hollow and relatively small, designed to be filled with specially selected stones that have already been prepared. The altar is designed to be ready at a moment's notice and able to be transported and assembled on the Temple Mount. So, as far as I know, that is the current altar. I don't know if that other one is a little bit more permanent than this one, so maybe this is like a very kind of like a Minuteman altar, and then later they would put in that other stone one. I don't know. Okay. December 30th, 2021, top 10 biblical prophecies of 2021. There's a lot of interesting things in here. I would recommend reading this. We've covered a lot of it, like when this happened on Jerusalem Day, and then we've talked about this. We've talked about this building as well. We've talked about the name of God appearing on the eastern retaining wall of the Temple Mount. It's in Hebrew. It's just missing the last letter. It's all in my playlist called Jerusalem or Judaism or Israel, Jerusalem, Judaism. So just go check it out. Okay, but I'm looking at number 9. In March, a reenactment of the Korban Pesach, the Passover temple service, was held near the Shar HaAshpat, the Dung Gate, near the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. The date, the 10th day of the first month, was significant in many ways. Okay, so they're really they're just really doing it. They are getting these guys as much practice as possible. They're trying to show the nation of Israel what it looks like, and almost give them hope that the third temple will be restored. Okay, it's amazing, and this all basically, from what I can tell, this all has pretty much happened just within the last few years, starting in 2016. Well, starting in 2009, but for all intents and purposes, most of it, 2016, it seems. So whatever happens, whatever happens, either way, I would consider all this signs of the times. We're almost done here. This is the last one. This was last month, April 12th. Passover sacrifice reenactment takes place despite threats of that thing right there. On Monday, the United Temple Movements organized a full dress reenactment of the Passover sacrifice in preparation for the reinstitution of the temple service. Kohanim carried out the reenactment, Jewish men who can trace their ancestry back. Okay, as specified in the Torah, a lamb was ritually slaughtered and roasted on a spit of pomegranate wood. The meat was distributed to the public who observed the event. Okay. All right. So there you have it. And then the most recent one, it's the most recent development in this long list of developments is this, that the actual stones for the temple were made on yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. Or well, no, on the 5th. So a couple days ago. So you can see how things are just kind of developing naturally and not necessarily at lightning speed. In one way, you can see it that it is actually happening really quick. If you look at it historically speaking, it's like, whoa, this is happening now. If you look at it from our point of view, just as a single person and living your life, it seems like it's kind of slow because 2016 was a while ago. But yeah, I'd say looking at it from a historical light, relatively speaking, this is all coming together very, very fast. And I'm kind of shocked that this is the most recent development, the actual stones being created for the temple. Okay. So let me know what you think. Put your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. And make sure to share this with anyone that would find this interesting. And I'll talk to you guys later.